What is up everyone, MovieWin back again with another video. Today is going to be another end of month vlog where I talk about all the movies and TV shows that I watched in the month of February 2025. Quite a few titles here, some on Blu-ray, some of them at the cinema, some of them are streaming. So yeah, you get the gist. I do these every month now. So let's just get into it now with the first thing that I watched. Now the first thing that I watched was Companion. I know this came out in January, but I got to it a little bit late there. And this stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. I was about to say Dennis Quaid then, but yeah, his son, Jack. This is basically a movie where this couple go to like this log cabin or like this house in the middle of the countryside to meet up with some other friends. And things start to go a little bit haywire. Now, I don't really want to say too much about this film because if you haven't seen the trailer, that is the best way to watch this movie. So I'm just going to say that there was plenty of great twists and turns in this film. Deals with the subject of AI a little bit. But I just don't want to get into too much more than that. But there was lots of great violence and stuff here. If you like your kills and stuff, you're going to get it. Not particularly a full horror movie. It's more of a sci-fi thriller with horror elements in. But Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid put great performances. I love both of these actors. And Sophie Thatcher's got this really unique smile and stuff. Just the way she looks, it just works on camera. She was born to be in movies. But Jack Quaid, I think, is a wonderful actor. And I thought he was great in this, to be honest. But yeah, like I said, lots of twists and turns along the way. Cool little storyline, and once you think you know where it's going, something else will be thrown in there. Very, very difficult film to talk about unless I'm talking about spoilers. And there is something that happens very early on, which you may know what the movie is actually about. But if you don't, I don't really want to say too much. So basically, just go into this one blind. Don't watch the trailers or anything, and you'll have a great time. I mean, even if you've seen the trailers, you'll have a great time. But up to now, this is my number one movie for 2025, believe it or not. So that is Companion. Next up, we do have The Mummy Returns. I spoke about The Mummy last month. I've been delving into this 4K box set. And yeah, this wasn't as good as the first movie for me, unfortunately. I do think there's some decent moments in this film. It's a easily digestible adventure movie. But the CGI really takes me out of this. Now, I grew up with Blade and stuff, which is movies that don't really have good CGI, but because I grew up with them, I can kind of forgive it there. Going back to a movie where CGI was really coming to fruition and looking really terrible around when these movies sort of came out, it really does take me out of the film. Apart from that, though, I think all the landscapes and everything look great on 4K. But overall, this movie just wasn't really doing much for me. I'm not sure this is a franchise that is really for me. I know a lot of people have been clamoring for another Mummy movie. I mean, Rachel Weisz and what's his name, Brandon Fraser, cool little characters in this. They've got a son in this movie. I thought it was quite annoying at times, to be honest. But yeah, you got The Rock in here who comes in as the Scorpion King, and I think, man, whatever the hell that was at the end with his face CGI'd onto the scorpion legs just looked awful. So yeah, unfortunately, that was taking me out of it a lot. But overall, it's watchable. It's just not as good as the first one, which I didn't even love either. Sort of dreading The Mummy, The Tomb of the Emperor King, is it? But we'll see. We'll see. I've heard that one is absolutely terrible. But yeah, we'll find out because that is the end of that box set. I will watch it at some point. Overall, it's an okay adventure film. Next up, we have a Video Nasty that I purchased a month or two ago, and that is Anthropophagus, the Beast, as I kind of know it, although it's just called Anthropophagus here. This is Joe D'Amato, I think, yes. Made this movie, and it really got lots of criticism, obviously being on the Video Nasties list, but the main talking point about this was a baby fetus eating scene. And I gotta admit, watching it now, it does look kind of silly, but I can see why people may have been enraged by it back then. But there are other kills in this movie that I think look kind of more sinister and worse, in my opinion. But it's the subject matter of that kill that probably turned a lot of people off, I suppose. But this is a bunch of friends who are going to this island to look for this other person. And when they get there, this sort of Neanderthal type character, which is it Anthropophagus, I think his name is. I can't remember if it's called that. Yes, it is. Obviously, Anthropophagus the Beast. He is there, basically just killing everyone. And he's like this sort of horrible looking giant troll type character. You know, I thought the makeup on him looked kind of cool and stuff for this type of movie that it is, and that's what you've got to consider going into these video nasties. They're not going to be the greatest masterpieces or anything like that. They are cheesy pieces of work, and this is exactly that. But it's a bit of a slow burn, this one. Might not be for everyone, but I kind of like the build-up and the anticipation and stuff. And there's a moment where this character is talking about this Anthropophagus, going, he's a monster and stuff, and she's blind, this woman. She goes, I can smell him when he's coming, I can smell him. And then later on, she's going, I can smell him. And he's coming into the room. And I thought that was quite a creepy moment, actually. Cool little ending on this as well. But yeah, it's not perfect. I mean, it's really, there's some terrible dialogue and stuff like that, but that's the charm of these movies. But I quite enjoyed it. That is Anthropophagus the Beast. Next up is going to be my older release of the month, and that is Fatal Attraction, a movie I have always wanted to check out, but just never got around to it. And I was buying The Terminator on 4K in HMV, and I seen this for $9.99 at the till, and I went, you know what, I'm just going to grab it now. And I watched it that very night. This sees Michael Douglas, whose wife goes away for a weekend, and he has an affair with this woman at work, played by, I always forget her name, Glenn Close. And after that, he's telling her, look, I'm married and stuff, I can't continue this. She won't leave him alone, and things go down a very sinister path, and she is just an absolute complete psycho who is amazing in this movie as this villain. But yeah, she's just a real bunny boiler, as the term is used. She really just won't leave this guy alone and trying to ruin his life. And you're just like, holy wow, what a horrible bitch. But on the other hand, I can't really feel sympathy for Michael Douglas either. He really does. It's not like a one-night stand, man. He's spending the whole weekend with this girl and just got no sympathy or remorse for his wife. You know, he's just basically cheating and he knows what he's doing. So, yeah, I couldn't get behind his character too much. I don't know if that was sort of looked at differently in the 80s or whatever by other people, because this movie really wants you to feel sorry for him. But, yeah, I kind of didn't. But I kind of liked it when, towards the end of the movie, he kind of comes clean with his family and stuff. And, you know, he acknowledges his mistake, basically. But yeah, Glenn Close, man, she's a fucking terrifying in this movie at times. But yeah, Fatal Attraction, really, really great film. Such a fantastic thriller. I'm so happy to own this in the collection. So that is Fatal Attraction. Next up, we do have the remake of Carrie. Owned this one for a while now. I've always been hesitant to check it out. I did want to watch it, hence why I bought it. But I've kind of just put it on the back burner a little bit there. And I thought, I was quite tired one night. I said to my wife, this one might be an easy watch. Should we just watch this? It's only like 90 minutes long or whatever. So we did. And you know what? It wasn't as bad as what everyone said. But I find it hard to rate this movie and say I enjoyed it. Because whilst I did, it doesn't do anything different to the original. It's kind of a pointless remake. And I hate it when remakes do that. But whilst I was watching it, I was having an okay time with it. But it's kind of one of them, you put it to the back of your head and you just think of Carrie and you think of the original, not this one. So yeah, very, very difficult one to say that I enjoyed. But I did actually like it as I was watching it. But the original is way better than this one. Because this one just basically copies the homework. I also found it difficult to believe that Chloe Grace Moretz would be an unpopular girl at school. Now, I'm not saying your looks defy your personality or anything, but when you watch these movies, it's usually the fantastic looking girls who are like the popular ones in school. And she's like the best looking girl in the movie, but she kind of gets bullied by everyone and stuff. And I was just like, nah, that doesn't really usually work like that in movies, but well, maybe it was trying to play it a little bit different. Yeah, you got Julianne Moore, who's always great in movies, as her mother in this, who is psychotic. But yeah, it's basically just a copy and paste. So yeah, I will always go back to the original Carrie. It was fine. Now, this is a movie that comes in a box set with 2 films and a documentary, and that is the Troll, the Complete Collection. Now, I bought this years ago for Troll 2. It's a movie I can have a lot of fun with. It's so bad, it's good. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out just to see how amazingly random that movie is. It's just insane. So I do recommend you check it out. All the artwork here is from the second movie. But it does have Troll 1 in there, which is a film I've never seen, but I've always been intrigued to check out. But it's got no relation to this movie here, the second movie whatsoever. It even says that on the back, the unrelated Troll is included in this set. And I really did not like this film. I was quite surprised to look on Letterboxd and see people give it like 3 stars, 3.5 stars and stuff. But a lot of people were giving it like 1.5, 2s as well. But this basically sees this family move into this apartment, and this Troll is living in the basement, and he's trying to sort of bring his world to this apartment by taking over the different apartment rooms and stuff. But it was just a very badly acted movie. You know, it just had B-movie feel, like low budget feel all over it. Some characters I just couldn't get on board with. There was like a witch in this movie, like the Good Witch or whatever. She was just not doing it for me whatsoever. But the most amazing thing about this film is that the main kid in this movie is called Harry Potter, and it's all to do with magic and stuff like that. So I don't know if J.K. Rowling watched this movie and then took that name, but it's a weird coincidence. Well, I'm glad to have finally seen it now, because I've always been intrigued to watch it, but Troll 2 is definitely king. There is another, I didn't watch it, but there's another documentary in here called Best Worst Movie, which I have watched years ago. Great documentary about Troll 2. So yeah, definitely recommend watching Troll 2, but not the first one. That is Troll. Lots of Blu-rays on, in one big run here. I do have streaming movies and stuff to talk about as well, but next up we do have Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. Now, I did watch all the Friday the 13th movies last year, but I wanted to rewatch them all again just for review purposes, and I've reviewed the first 4 movies on my horror channel. I'll leave a link to my Friday the 13th review series playlist down below, and I'm currently about to film a review for this one. But you know what? This one gets a really bad rep. It's kind of a lower production value feel than the other movies, which is weird because you got like lots of people's favorites in parts 4 and 6, and this one's sandwiched in between. But I think this film is a lot of fun. It's so random, some of the shit that happens in this movie, but that's part of the charm. It kind of works because of it. Like, there's characters introduced in the middle of the film who are just introduced for one scene, killed off, and then we move on with the other characters of the main story. There's people getting sang to while they're sitting on the toilet. There is people being called big dildos. Someone suplexes another character through a table. It's unbelievably random what happens in this movie, but I kind of love it. I can acknowledge it's not a very good film, but it's kind of like Troll 2, kind of like so bad it's good. Although this is on another level to Troll 2, I will admit that. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with this movie. It tries to do something a little bit different, involving the killer, and actually doing something with its main character, with Tommy Doyle suffering from a lot of trauma from the previous movie. None of these movies really do that with their main protagonists, apart from part 3 so far. So yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. My biggest problem with Friday the 13th Part 5, and I think it's because the MPAA got involved, is that a lot of the kills are just off screen. You'll see a kill, and then blood will squirt, and that'll be it. So this could have been so epically violent, and it would have improved the movie so much more if we got to see all that. But you can just tell there are lots of cuts in this film, unfortunately. However, still a great time. So that is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. Next up, I watched Oscar winner Anora. Yes, I missed out on this last year, so I finally got round to it. I did watch it before the Oscars, but yeah, it just coincidentally won. Now, this is a Sean Baker film. I've only ever seen one of his movies, and that was Red Rocket. I think I spoke about that last month, and I absolutely loved that film. So with the hype of this one and everyone saying how great it was, I was going to check it out, and I had a really, really good time with it. This is Mikey Madison's character, who is this prostitute, and this guy who's like this Russian kid who's got lots of money and doesn't got a care in the world. He's always partying, gets a dance offer, and he hires her to come over to the house and basically just has sex with her all the time and stuff like that. But then he has this crazy idea to get married to her because it looks like they're sort of connecting a little bit more there. And Anora kind of agrees to this. And this is where the movie goes down different paths. and the Russian mafia get involved and everything, and it starts to become quite the hilarious film. Like, there were so many scenes in this movie where I was laughing my ass off. A scene in the house where it all sort of flips, that goes on for about 20 minutes, was just so funny. So many funny things happening one after another, so much fun dialogue, and then we end on the movie on a really serious note. So it's a really well written script, I think, so well acted. I think Mikey Madison is deserving of her Oscar. I personally would have went with Demi Moore, but I can't really argue with Mikey Madison winning either. She was great in this movie. The kid who played the Russian kid, he was hilarious. So yeah, I do recommend this film highly. Sean Baker is a movie director who has me excited now. I really want to check out more of his stuff. I've got the Florida Project on Blu-ray right there, so I'm going to be checking that out very soon. Hopefully you'll see me talk about that this month. And Tangerine is another one I want to check out. But highly recommend this, guys. It was great. And Red Rocket as well, definitely. So that is Anora. So February did have Valentine's Day, of course, and I checked out My Bloody Valentine 3D, although I did watch this in 2D. I don't have a 3D telly. First time watching me this one, guys. I just never ever got round to this movie. I've seen the original, but just not this one. And I thought this was quite fun, to be honest. I didn't like it as much as the original. But yeah, there's a lot of cool carnage in here, lots of blood and gore, sticking to the formula of the original film. And it's basically kind of the same story and stuff, but tries to shake it up a little bit. And I thought it was fine. The reveal of the killer was a little bit underwhelming, but it's a good My Bloody Valentine remake, I will say that. I mean, it's not much more to say. It's about this miner going around the town, killing people on Valentine's Day because of something that happened years before, like this tragedy. And he thinks the townsfolk should not be celebrating Valentine's Day because of that. What I did find funny about this movie, it's kind of like Friday the 13th Part 3, where you can see all these 3D gimmicks that they've placed around the film, like eyes popping out and stuff. But it's not in 3D, so, well, it is, but the version I watched wasn't. And it really does stand out, but I thought that was part of the charm, to be honest. So yeah, not a bad remake, but I definitely prefer the original. So that is My Bloody Valentine 3D. Next up, we have another Valentine's Day slasher movie, and that is Heart Eyes. Went to cinema to watch this one. I was quite excited for it. And I gotta say, this was a really fun time. It's kind of a rom-com at heart, with the horror kind of lurking in the background. But when the horror hits, you're like, holy shit, I forgot this was a horror movie. So it's got all the tropes and cliches of a rom-com, and then the slasher elements just come right in there. It's got a really cool killer who's got like this mask with these heart eyes that light up in the dark and stuff. Wish they would have utilised that a little bit more. Kind of only used for one scene, but that was so awesome to see. The build on this character and everything was great. The kills in this movie were really fun. And he basically just goes to a different city or state every Valentine's Day and targets couples. And the couple here, who are the central characters, played by Olivia Wilde and Mason Gooden, aren't really a couple, but they just have this kiss after this date, and the Heart Eyes killer sees them and basically goes after them. And it's kind of funny, this movie, because they're getting chased going, we're not a couple, and stuff like that. There are scenes where the killer is basically smashing the room up trying to kill these characters, and like a dildo will fall out of the wardrobe and just vibrate on the floor and stuff. It's that type of humour. Now, I really think they did lose the balance with the comedy, because while this movie is really funny, me and this guy in the cinema laughing our asses off all the time, I just wish they held back a little bit when it came to the slasher parts. But it's throwing comedy in when the killer is trying to kill these people, or people are killed and there's still comedy happening. They kind of just needed to lean back a little bit there, because it does feel too comedic. Wasn't really a big fan of the reveal either. But overall, guys, I thought this was a fun movie, and we're probably going to get a sequel. It's done quite well at the box office there, and I will be up for that. It's my second favourite movie of the year so far, just behind Companion there. But yeah, there's a kill in the opening scene as well, guys, where I was like, holy shit, this movie goes for it. It's not trying to get a PG-13 or a 12A rating. It just goes full, hardcore with the blood and violence. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I had a great time with this one. That is Heart Eyes. Next up though, guys, we do have my new release of the month, and that is the third segment of Cobra Kai Season 6. This is definitely now one of my favourite TV shows of all time, and this ended on such a high, such a great ending this one had, and it just couldn't have wrapped up more perfectly, in my opinion, especially for one of my favourite characters of all time in Johnny Lawrence, played by William Zabka. But I was kind of thinking, where's this series going? I think season 5 was the weakest. But overall, when you look at season 6, I think it done a pretty good job, basically. And it's basically more of the same thing. You know, you got Teddy Silver and trying to bring down Danny LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence themselves and stuff like that. But I don't really want to talk about it too much without getting into spoilers, but it just has a great ending. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I think a lot of other the character arcs were wrapped up brilliantly as well. It's just such a shame. I was kind of getting emotional watching this last episode because I was like, man, I'm never going to be able to watch this show again. I mean, I can, of course. I think my wife secretly wants to watch it, so maybe I'll start it again from the beginning at some point, but nothing fresh is ever going to come from it, unfortunately. But you got to end somewhere, and I think this was the perfect ending, basically. And there's a montage scene where Danny LaRusso is training Johnny Lawrence with that song from the Karate Kid in "You're the best of all," and I was stuck in my head for days. I was walking around my site and work singing it, and then other people started joining singing. I was just walking around the site hearing people singing it. I don't know if they watched the show either, or I just made them that song catch on, but yeah. Really, really great show. One of my top 5 shows of all time, easily. If you have never watched Cobra Kai, guys, you've got to. It's just wonderful. So that is Cobra Kai Season 6, my new release of the month. Next up, we have Flight Risk. Now, this is a Mel Gibson film. I absolutely love the movie Apocalypto. I think Hacksaw Ridge is fantastic. You got Braveheart there. And then he just does this 90-minute movie that was just thrown out in January at the cinema, where Mark Wahlberg is this assassin on a plane trying to kill this guy who is going to a court case to basically tattletale or stitch on people. And that is the whole movie, these 3 characters on a plane. And this started off okay, and it just went to shit. I thought, I'll enjoy this because so many people are saying it's terrible, but I bet I get a kick out of it because I'm going in not expecting much. My God, man, it was just a poor movie. Like, at one point, they sort of overpower Mark Wahlberg and tie him up, and then they've got this pilot on the communications device, and this woman who works for the FBI is going to try and land this plane, and he is sort of telling her how to land the plane, but then flirting with her and asking if he can take her out on a date and stuff, and the dialogue between them 2 characters is so cringeworthy, and I was just like, oh man, this is just not working for me whatsoever. And this woman and the guy who's going to the court case are just looking ahead. Mark Wahlberg is like sort of soaring his way through this belt that he's tied up with, and they don't turn around once, and he's doing it for like 3 or 4 minutes. It's just a really nothing movie. Now, I will say that it is watchable if you want something easy to digest and just watch this movie and not think too much about it. Easy 90 minutes, you can have that. But I just thought the movie had so many problems. Yeah. One of my least favourite movies of the year. I can't believe Mel Gibson agreed to do this. There must be reasoning behind it, but he is capable of so much more. I will say though, Mark Wahlberg was quite fun at times with his accent. You know, y'all need a pilot. Yeah, but unfortunately, just one to figure. That is Flight Risk. Next up, I watched Popeye's Revenge. I reviewed this over on my horror channel as well, and you know what? It wasn't as bad as you think. Now, I say you think as I thought it was going to be. But I am a little bit of a fan of the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey films. I don't think they were near as bad as everyone said they were. But this one is more in the same vein of that first movie, although I will say it's a bit level above. I do prefer this a little bit more than the first Winnie the Pooh film. But you know what you're getting into when you hear that, don't you? Now, this basically sees Popeye coming for some revenge because he was bullied as a kid at school for having these big forearms, and he takes it out on the camp counselors, kind of like Jason in Friday the 13th. And I kind of like the look of this killer. You know, Popeye, he's got this big muscly guy to play him. But there's fun kill scenes in here. Like, he punches through someone's stomach at one point. He rips someone's spine out and stuff. But a lot of the other kills kind of reminded me of Friday the 13th Part 5, where they kind of just cut away. You can tell the budget restraints are in there. My big problem here was the characters. I didn't like any of them. A lot of them were assholes. A lot of them I just couldn't get behind. I didn't care for. And they're not really very well acted. I mean, it's not terribly acted, but very, very mediocre. And the line delivery and the dialogue and stuff is just off. But I didn't hate it. I kind of got a kick from it, to be honest. I thought it was okay. And we do have another Popeye movie coming out later this month and another one later in the year. So we've got 3 of these motherfuckers coming out in the year of 2025. But this was fine, I thought. But I could see a lot of people hating this movie, so do not take my word for it. It's the slasher fan in me that could tolerate it, I suppose. So that is Popeye's Revenge. Next up, we have Scott Derrickson's The Gorge, which came to Apple TV. And I was skeptic about this one. A lot of people saying, oh, this movie looks brilliant from the trailers and stuff. And I was like, it looks okay. It looks interesting. I'll give it that. And it sees Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy guarding what is essentially this gorge that is the gates to hell, and they're on opposite sides and are allowed to communicate or anything like that, but obviously they do catch each other's eye and start communicating by lifting signs up and stuff and writing on them and stuff like that. And eventually Miles Teller goes to the other side with the zip line and stuff that is conveniently placed there, and they start this little bit of a romance. I do think there was good chemistry between the two, but I did like it more when they were kind of showing the signs up. It felt like it was more engaging when they were doing that. But it's an interesting concept. However, in the middle of the movie, we go sort of into this gorge, and my God, it was terrible to look at. I thought the CGI in this film was god awful, and it just really took me out the movie. All that middle segment, I did not like whatsoever. And then it kind of picks up again in the third act slightly. Now, I do think, even though they had good chemistry together, I do think Miles Teller was a little bit devoid of personality in this film. It's Anya Taylor-Joy who was the star of this one. She's the more fun character, you know, with the sort of mannerisms she have when she's kind of flirting with Miles Teller and stuff. But yeah, for me, I've got to admit, guys, I didn't really like her, to be honest. There's a whole big section in the middle there that just did not work for me at all. So a lot of people do like this movie, don't take my word for it, but for me, bit of a disappointment, even though I was a little bit skeptic with the trailers. I didn't think it'd be as unlikable as I found it to be. So that is The Gorge. Next up, we have The Monkey, the new movie by, what the hell is the guy's name? Osgood Perkins, doing the Stephen King adaptation of a short story. And this was kind of like Heart Eyes, a real fun horror comedy for the first hour. It's basically these 2 young brothers who find this toy monkey, and every time they wind it up, a random person is killed in an absolutely horrific and violent way. And some of the kill scenes here were very inventive, very fun. Blood and gore spilled all over the screen. I think the young kid, Christian Convery, I think his name is, was great playing these 2 twin brothers. One of them's an asshole, and the other one is like this little feeble guy who gets bullied and stuff at school. So 2 polar opposites, but he done so well in the role. And then we see Theo James playing the same 2 brothers as older characters. And he done a good job. I really didn't like him as the arsehole brother, though, in the third act. And that's where the movie kind of falls off. The third act, for me, just didn't really work. After such a fun first act, it has a tonal shift where the comedy is just taking out the movie, which should work for me because I love horror films. But when you're sitting there watching a comedy horror for an hour, you should really just do it for the whole movie. And it kind of shifts and feels totally different, so detached. Unless you're like Honora, who can sort of switch it up and craft it really well, this one, it just feels like a total drop-off in what it was doing and just goes pure horror. And that didn't kind of work for me. There was characters introduced like the arsehole brother who's a little bit older in the third act, and Theo James's the other brother, his son, who I just didn't like at all. And they spend a lot of time trying to connect them two characters, and that was the more boring part of the movie, I thought. But overall, I do recommend this if you're a horror fan. I thought the monkey was so creepy looking and stuff. It's worth it for the death scenes alone. So yeah, not bad, but a little bit of a disappointment. That is The Monkey. Next up, we do have Breakdown on 4K, a first time watch for me, this one. Now, a lot of people I've heard say this movie is great, mainly Andy from Forgotten World of Movies, I think Mike Cinema X-Man, and Nige from Rock God 2004. And Keith from Euphoria Pictures. I think all of them had seen this, but I know Andy definitely has, and I've heard them talking about it on the live stream, and it really did pique my interest in watching this movie. A 90s thriller that just passed me by over the years. I remember seeing the VHS cover and stuff, but it's just one I thought, I never really thought to watch or anything. And I've got so many recommendations from them guys. Andy knows his movies, put it that way, but they all do, to be honest. But Andy just, I don't know, man, he just seems to give me so many recommendations over the years. But yeah, this one is a great on-the-road thriller. This is Kurt Russell, whose car breaks down, and this trucker goes past and says, I can take one of you to the next town if one of you wants to wait. So his wife goes with him, and she doesn't come back, and Kurt Russell's starting to get a bit worried and stuff. He eventually gets the car working, goes to the next town, and no one's even seen her turn up there, and she basically goes missing. And this really turned into a full-on thrill ride. I don't want to say too much more now it all pans out and stuff, but kind of reminded me of The Hitcher a little bit. But I just had a great time with it. Great performances here from everyone involved, including all the villains and stuff. Kurt Russell, of course, who's always great. I highly do recommend this movie. It's so much fun. I love on-the-road thrillers as well, so baffles me to why I hadn't seen this before. And I love movies that all take place in the outback as well, and the outback country of America. It's just great to me. But yeah, highly recommend this one, guys. It's a lot of fun. So that is Breakdown. Next up, we have another TV show now, and that is Goosebumps The Vanishing, starring David Schwimmer. I watched the first Goosebumps with my wife, and we decided to watch this one. This was only 8 episodes, I believe, and this one had a really fun concept to start the show with. There's like this sort of ooze like underneath the city, and these kids, David Schwimmer's daughter and son, come across it with their friends and try and put a stop to it because it's taking over people's bodies and stuff like that. And first 4 episodes and stuff, I was like, I'm right into this. This is really good. And then it kind of just dropped off and went in a very uninteresting direction, I thought. Yeah, I think the characters were likable, but not well acted, if that makes sense. I mean, there was some really off performances here. I thought David Schwimmer just looked tired in this. It was fine. I really wish Goosebumps would just go back to the anthology sort of days. I loved that show as a kid, and this one tries to mold all them anthology stories that R.L. Stine wrote into one big story. So yeah, like each episode is called one of his books, and it tries to do something with that story to put it into this one. And I don't know, I kind of just wish it went back to the old days of Goosebumps, because really these are original, fresh ideas, just using elements from his books. So why are I don't know. I just think it'd be better telling the stories and doing an updated version of this series. Overall, it was okay. I didn't really like it all that much. Started off fine, ended a bit disappointingly, unfortunately. So that is Goosebumps The Vanishing. And last up, guys, we do have The Dead Thing, which came to Shudder, and this is going to be, I imagine, the worst movie of the year for me. I absolutely hated this film, and I was very surprised to see people giving this 4-star and stuff on Letterboxd, but you know, you like what you like. Do not listen to me. You may see something in this film. I will admit I was quite tired watching this one. There's a couple of times where I nodded off and had to wake up and rewind to where I was, which kind of ruined the experience a little bit. My damn kids, man, they just don't sleep. They keep me up all night. Can't wait till they sleep through. My God, it's really ruining my movie watching at times because I'm just so tired. Sometimes I can't even watch a film. So yeah, please start sleeping through, kids. That would be great. But yeah, the dead thing. It's just about this woman who doesn't have any successful dates. She keeps swiping right on her phone for most of the first act of the movie. So yeah, you're just watching someone on their phone. She goes on this date, finally meets this guy who she likes, and then he kind of ghosts her. And she wants to get to the bottom of why. And there's a little bit of a sinister backstory with him. He's got like, that's where the horror elements come into play. But I didn't like the characters in this film. The main protagonist, Blue Sky, I name it. What's her name? Blue something. Blue Hunt, is it? She was a good actress, but she was an unlikable character. And all the other characters were ass. I mean, I didn't like the filter, the way this director tried to portray it so realistically. It just didn't work for me. It just felt very, very low budget, which isn't a bad thing at times. I mean, you can definitely, I don't hate low budget movies or anything, but this one, you could just feel it throughout the entire film. So yeah, unfortunately guys, I didn't like this movie at all. That is the dead thing. Okay guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. What do you think of these titles I watched this month? Please do comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You know, let's all just have a good discussion. Thanks so much guys. You all take care and I'll see you all in the next video.